It is August the 11th, 1782. A week has passed since the Grosvenor shattered on the jagged rocks of the Ponderland coast. Now, at the Ntafufu River, an isolated haven less than 30 kilometers south of the wreck site, a desperate group huddles together. Captain Coxon still reels from the desertion of most of his crew. A raw gash on his side throbs, a physical ache reflecting the collapse of his authority, once absolute, now scattered like the footprints they leave behind in the sand. Nearby, Alexander Logie, the chief mate, gasps for air. His lungs, ravaged by a week of exposure and strain, burn with every breath. Beside him, his pregnant wife Lydia stands, her bare feet stained crimson. Tears stream down her face as she watches life visibly ebb from her husband. William Hosea sits with his family, their last vestiges of will fading with each passing moment. His 2-year-old daughter, Frances, curls on the sand beside him, her small body emaciated, her legs a roadmap of scars and scratches. The silence is deafening as they watch the morning sun rise over the ocean. As the sun climbs, a chilling transformation begins to unfold. Amidst the quiet, Coxon's true nature, stripped bare by the crucible of survival, starts to emerge. Survival eclipses everything. He casts a cold glance at the remaining passengers, silently weighing their worth as burdens. Then, with a decisive pivot, he leads roughly 30 loyalists inland, abandoning the others to a fate he deems inevitable. What deepens this betrayal is Coxon's decision to abandon not only his most esteemed passengers, the Hoseas, but also 3 children entrusted to his care, Eleanor Dennis, Robert Chambers, and Mary Wilmot, all under 7 years old. These children were sent on the Grosvenor back to England for their schooling, placed directly under the captain's watch. Coxon's complete desertion of these children offers crucial insight into his character and his profound self-interest. William Hosea, now succumbing to starvation and exhaustion, watches in disbelief. The immense fortune he had entrusted to Coxon for this passage, a lifeline to a new life, now buys him nothing. His young daughter and little Thomas Chambers whimper beside him, their small bodies weakened by hunger, their legs refusing to carry them any further. They can only watch as the captain and his followers vanish over a ridge. Hosea surveys the faces around him, a scattering of terrified passengers, children, and servants. His coffers, it seems, are no longer a source of power. The former resident, uniquely positioned to command loyalty through wealth, had salvaged a significant portion of his fortune from the disaster, a collection of diamonds valued at nearly £2 million today. Hosea's riches likely influenced the negotiations that commenced immediately after the Grosvenor ran aground. However, in this critical moment, diamonds proved insufficient to secure loyalty, perhaps because, in the harsh realities of survival, they were no longer with him. A darker, more immediate betrayal likely unfolded here. Hosea's frail state, described months later by a servant of the Logies to a sailor, proved he could not have travelled another 100 kilometres south. This makes the Kai River, where a cache of similar stones would later be unearthed, a chilling echo of Hosea's lost wealth. Coxon undeniably knew of Hosea's considerable wealth. Did greed ignite within their ranks? Did they seize Hosea's precious cargo? Or perhaps one of Coxon's inner circle, driven by a selfish instinct, buried the gems, envisioning a future where they alone could claim the bounty. Adding a disturbing weight to this theory, Habberley would later recall seeing MacDonald, a sailor who had been among Coxon's departing group, near that very Kai River just weeks later. Habberley remembered MacDonald being so weakened that crossing the wide river seemed beyond his capabilities. Could this same man have been the one to secure Hosea's fortune in a secret grave? It's a plausible scenario, or perhaps the most likely one. Without their captain and a significant portion of the crew, the remaining survivors, the Hoseas, the dying Logie and his family, their servants, and a handful of small children and a few sailors, huddled together, their resources dwindling to nothing. The scuttling of land crabs and the meager offerings of wild berries become their sustenance. Isolation presses in from all sides. Death feels like an encroaching presence. A grim truth settles upon them. They must move. An agonizing decision cuts through their despair. Alexander Logie, his life force fading, will be left behind. His wife, Lydia, now a widow before her husband has even breathed his last, must be carried by the remaining servants, her sobs a mournful counterpoint to their weary steps. But their progress is agonizingly slow, and the fragile bonds of their group begin to fray. First, the remaining sailors slip away, their own survival instincts overriding any sense of duty. Then, the servants, drawn by the primal need for companionship, vanish into the landscape, leaving the Hoseas, Lydia Logie, the 5 children, and a few remaining servants utterly alone. In the twilight of his existence, William Hosea, once a beacon of British authority in India, now lies prostrate on a desolate bank. Each ragged breath speaks of a life force draining away, dissipating into the wind. Unseen, unheard, his final thoughts a silent scream trapped within the crumbling walls of his mind. We can only imagine his final hours, the weakening grip on a life that had once pulsed with purpose, and the slow, inevitable dimming of the light from his eyes. This man, a figure of consequence and family, the esteemed resident of Murshidabad, is now a mere husk, his lifeblood seeping into foreign soil, his bones destined to whiten under an African sun. As starvation slowly tightened its grip, Hosea must have had ample opportunity to reflect. How trivial his troubles in India must have felt now, the very trials that had caused his family's flight, only to land him on this foreign coast. How different the sounds of the ebbing waves must have seemed compared to the opulent halls he once commanded. The penniless boy had struggled, perhaps dishonorably, but dutifully and doggedly, for position on a harsh subcontinent, only to be brought here to die at the age of 33. His greatest fears, drowning or murder, were not the cause of his eventual demise. Instead, death arrived as a slow capitulation to exhaustion, starvation, and a resigned acceptance. But the story of Hosea's family doesn't end here. Though fragmented and obscured by time, the threads of their fate remain, waiting to be woven into the larger tapestry of this disaster. For now, however, their path forward remains shrouded in uncertainty. As for Captain Coxon, his final moments are unknown. The last man to see him, MacDonald, recalls the chilling image by the Mthatha River. Too weak to cross, Coxon remains, a final act that echoes his command at sea, leaving others to face what he cannot. He would never be seen again. The relentless landscape guards the truth of Coxon's death, much like the ocean keeps the secrets of the captain's final moments and those of so many who followed him onto the Grosvenor. In the harrowing aftermath of the wreck, Coxon's character, forged in the rigid hierarchy of naval command, faced its ultimate trial. His manner, once stiff with the assurance of unquestioned authority, now betrayed a man out of his depth. He was a man past his prime, accustomed to the predictable rhythms of the open sea, where charts and compasses offered clear direction. The treacherous uncertainty of the African shore, however, offered only chaos. The crisis of the Grosvenor's wreck shattered his confidence, revealing a captain unable to adapt and too proud to yield. The simple, brutal truth endures. The captain, and nearly all who sailed under him, will never leave this desolate shore. Their stories, once vibrant with the promise of adventure and return, are now forever bound to the tragedy of his once proud East Indiaman. Chapter 5: A Sombre Salvation. It is late August. Ahead of the captain's dwindling group, another band of survivors pushes onward. 34 strong, led by the ship's carpenter, Thomas Page, their pace is driven by necessity. The treacherous Mthatha River lies behind them, conquered by a hastily constructed raft. Now, the land between the Pondo and the Xhosa stretches before them, and they cover ground with surprising speed, some 15 miles each day. Young Thomas Law, just 7 years old, his mixed English and Indian heritage setting him apart, is a constant reminder of their shared vulnerability. He has passed from one weary set of arms to another, though it is often Henry Lilburn, the ship's steward, who carries the boy's weight. 2 young men stand out within Page's group. 18-year-old Irishman Jeremiah Evans, lean and agile, moves with the grace of someone accustomed to physical labor. Beside him walks Barney Leary, a powerfully built teenager, his size hinting at raw strength. This ill-fated voyage on the Grosvenor marked Leary's first time at sea, a harsh introduction to a sailor's life. Perhaps eager to prove his worth, or simply propelled by youthful energy, Leary set a demanding rhythm at the forefront of their small procession. Amidst the shared hardship, an unlikely bond takes root. Francisco de Lasso, a seasoned Italian sailor, finds himself drawn to Robert Price, the captain's young servant, barely 14 years of age. Their connection was forged in the violent chaos of the wreck. De Lasso's strong arms had plucked Price from the churning waves, dragging his limped form onto the shore. Now, as they stumble across this unfamiliar terrain, a subtle shift occurs in their dynamic. Price, seemingly delicate, reveals an extraordinary gift. His sharp eyes scan the alien landscape, effortlessly distinguishing sustenance from poison. He locates hidden fresh springs of water that even the experienced De Lasso overlooks. The boy's uncanny ability transforms him into a vital asset, each discovery a silent repayment for the life he was so recently given. Their journey across the 200 kilometers separating the Bashi and the Great Fish Rivers becomes a brutal test of endurance. The group, initially united by their shared ordeal, frays and splinters. Individuals stumble and fall behind, some to eventually rejoin, others lost forever to the vastness of the African wilderness. Exhaustion and injury claims them one by one, their fates swallowed by the landscape. Acts of courage and moments of desperation unfold, unrecorded, fading into speculation, perhaps whispered in the stories of the people whose land they now traverse. By mid-September, their numbers dwindle to 20 as they enter Xhosa territory. The timing could not be worse. A severe winter has depleted the resources of the local people, and tensions simmer between them and the encroaching white settlers. The arrival of these bedraggled strangers is met not with sympathy, but with suspicion and a deep-seated resentment, born of conflict over land and resources, a conflict these castaways are now stumbling into. John Hines, an Irishman, sees it in the guarded eyes that follow their approach. The Xhosa watch their gaunt figures, their own cattle steered swiftly away as the starving men draw near. There is no offer of help, no chance for trade. The memory of land disputes, of broken treaties, runs deep here. Yet, for now, they are allowed to pass. Relief arrives in a gruesome yet welcome form. A dead whale, a colossal gift from the sea, lies beached. Oyster shells become makeshift tools, scraping at the decaying flesh. As they eat, heads turn. Figures descend from the hills. Tension tightens until the locals reach the carcass. They see not thieves, but desperate men. A lance is offered to Lilburn, making the carving easier. For young Tom Law, a bowl of fresh milk, woven from grass, is presented, a small act of kindness in a land weary of strangers. Hines and 7 others linger for another day, while the carpenter and the main group press on. When Hines finally catches up, the news hits like a physical blow. Page is dead. Another leader gone, claimed by the hunger that gnaws at them all. Lilburn, the quiet steward who has become young Tom Law's protector, now finds himself at the head. By early October, they reach the Great Fish River, another daunting obstacle. This one, however, proves too much for Captain Talbot's loyal servant, Isaac Blair. De Lasso and Price quickly fashion a raft, intending to carry him across the wide expanse. But as they try to load his body onto the small raft, a chilling truth becomes clear. He is cold to the touch. Another young life lost to the relentless trek. For weeks, the group's formation resembles a scattered flock of birds, their path unknowingly tracing the footsteps of history as they pass by modern vacation spots like Port Alfred and Kenton-on-Sea. They cross the very beach where Bartholomew Dias, the first European explorer to round the Cape, landed in 1488. It is here that an Irish sailor, Thomas Lewis, reaches his breaking point. His body and spirits are shattered, his life's cup overflowing with bitterness from the relentless hardships. Despair has him in its clutches, refusing to let go. Despite the group's pleas, he turns his back on them, choosing to seek refuge among the Xhosa. They watch him vanish over the grassy ridge, knowing in their hearts they will never see him again. Their numbers now dwindle to just 12 as the group stumbles into what we know today as the Woody Cape Nature Reserve. It is a name that suggests tranquility, but for these survivors, it is anything but. This is a formidable desert, stretching 40 miles east from the Sundays River along Algoa Bay and 4 miles inland, its towering dunes reaching 100 feet into the air. It proves to be a final, brutal trial for the castaways. If only Lilburn had followed Tom Lewis inland, they might have found a friendly Xhosa tribe, altering their fate entirely. But the sea has sustained them for 2 long months, and so, drawn by its relentless call, they march blindly into this sandy abyss. As Lilburn's group pushes into the desert, 100 kilometers behind them, Taylor, Williams, and Habberley's small party approaches the Kai River. The weight of his lost companion presses down on William Habberley as he and the remaining 9 push onwards through the harsh terrain. 2 months have passed since the Grosvenor shattered against the shore. Then, on October the 2nd, a glimmer of hope arrives, a large kraal nestled along the Kai River. Hope, fragile as it is, flickers as the inhabitants offer milk in exchange for their few remaining copper trinkets. But the exchange is short-lived. Soon, with nothing left to offer, they watch as the milk goes to the dogs. Stones rain down, driving them back into the wilderness. Despair becomes their constant companion. Each step is a battle against exhaustion. The land begins to claim them, one by one. First, the Lascar falters and collapses. Then, John Howes, his body spent, breathes his last. When Stockdale, the discharged soldier, falls ill, Williams and Taylor refuse to abandon him. Precious days are lost in hopeful vigil, but recovery never comes. With heavy hearts, the brutal truth of their dwindling numbers sinks deeper as they leave Stockdale behind. The 2 merchants become anchors in the shifting sands of their despair. Their quiet resolve, earned through years of trade and hardship, is a wellspring for Habberley. 2 weeks crawl by. Only 6 remain when they reach the Keiskamma River. A herd of elephants, immense and otherworldly to their European eyes, grazes along the banks. They move with extreme caution around these colossal beasts, crossing the river and emerging into dense undergrowth. There, they are confronted by 20 Xhosa warriors. These are the Rarabe, the westernmost of the Xhosa, their lands closest to the growing presence of European settlers. Sticks and stones fly, forcing the survivors to retreat into the hills. Injured but driven by survival, they press on. A chance encounter with a stray dog offers a moment of grim relief. Under the cloak of night, using sharp mussel shells, they butcher the animal and boil its meagre flesh. The sustenance, however, comes too late for John Sussman, who dies in the silence of the night. A similar fate awaits Jonas, a sailor whose thirst has driven him to madness. He drinks deeply from a brackish pool and perishes. The following morning, the 4th mate, Trotter, also succumbs after drinking the tainted water. He is the last of the Grosvenor's officers to die, leaving only 3, the merchants, Williams and Taylor, and the young Habberley, just 21 years old. The exhausted trio pushes south, covering 50 kilometers in a week until they reach the Great Fish River. The merchants weaken with each passing day, leaving Habberley with the burden of finding food and water. They reach the riverbank, its clear expanse before them. It's obvious only Habberley has the strength to attempt a crossing. Defeated, John Williams collapses. Tears mingle with the Great Fish River. In the water's shimmer, his gaunt reflection deepens his despair. Suddenly, a chorus of shouts erupts from the nearby trees. The 3 men turn towards the sound. From the edge of the forest emerge a throng of warriors, flanked by snarling dogs, brandishing rough wooden weapons. Stones begin to rain down. Fear instantly transforms into a desperate need to escape the sudden onslaught. One of the thrown stones strikes Williams hard on the head. He stumbles, falling behind Habberley and Taylor as they try to flee. But the raw terror in their comrades' cry freezes them. They whirl around. The scene is brutal. Williams, bleeding, writhing amidst the weapon-wielding figures. With a desperate lunge, he throws himself towards the river, his only conceivable escape. Another volley of stones follows, one hitting him squarely on the temple. His arms flail wildly for a moment, then go still. A triumphant cry echoes from the riverbank as the Xhosa celebrate their victory. The river's current catches Williams, pulling him beneath the surface and out towards the ocean that had shaped his life. Terror fuels Habberley and Taylor's flight. Every snapping twig, every distant cry of a bird amplifies the pounding of their hearts. Behind them, the guttural barks of the warriors' dogs grow closer with terrifying speed. Habberley pushes ahead, but Taylor, older, perhaps less resilient, stumbles, his stride faltering. A raw, piercing scream rips from his throat, a sound that will forever haunt Habberley, chilling him to the very marrow. Habberley throws himself into a nearby bush, the sharp branches scraping against his skin, a small price for the illusion of safety. He presses himself into the earth, bracing for the inevitable. Then, an unsettling silence descends, heavy and absolute, where Taylor's screams had been. The quiet is more terrifying than the pursuit, a void filled with unspoken horrors. Hidden, every nerve alight, Habberley waits. The sun, a slow, agonizing descent, finally gives way to the blessed anonymity of night. When he finally dares to crawl from his hiding place, his limbs stiff with fear and cold, and retraces his steps to where Taylor had fallen, a macabre discovery awaits him. Taylor is alive, but broken. The extent of his injuries is horrific, a testament to the pursuer's efficiency. The faint light of dawn brings no comfort, only the stark reality of their predicament. The few turtle eggs he manages to unearth are a meager offering. As the hours bleed into a new day, Taylor's life, a fragile flame, flickers and then, with a last, shuddering breath, is extinguished. A crushing solitude descends upon Habberley. 3 relentless months of hardship, a 200-mile odyssey marked by starvation, exhaustion, and the constant spectre of death had led him to this unforgiving place. Every decision, every painful step, every meager triumph against the elements had been shared, but now the crushing weight of singular survival descends, an unbearable burden on his shoulders. The past, a relentless torrent of memories, crashes over him, each wave a reminder of what he has lost, what he has endured, and the terrifying uncertainty of what lies ahead.
We're incredibly grateful to have a sponsor for this season of More Than a Story, and not just any sponsor, but one deeply connected to the very tale we're telling. Lambazi Lodge is supporting the show this season, and we're genuinely thrilled to introduce them to you. Explore the untamed wild coast and come away with unforgettable memories of the warm hospitality, the beautiful surroundings, and the sense of peace that lingers long after you leave. Just a short walk from the tunnel where treasure hunters once searched for the Grosvenor's lost riches, Lambazi Lodge offers a front row seat to history. But it's more than a historical landmark. It's the perfect base for families, fishermen, hikers, and adventurers looking to explore the untamed beauty of the wild coast. To plan your own escape, visit lambazilodge.com and use the promo code MoreThanAStory10 to get 10% off your booking during designated dates.
A week has crawled by since Thomas Page and his group stumbled into the sandy desert. The sun, a brutal eye in the sky, bakes the sand into a blinding yellow furnace. Their throats are raw, their bodies screaming for water. Any sign of green has vanished, replaced by endless, unforgiving dunes. The relentless heat shimmers, conjuring cruel illusions that mock their desperation. Even the sea offers no comfort. The coastline is barren, yielding only a few meager periwinkles, scavenged after watching seagulls peck at the sand. As darkness falls near Cape Padrone, they huddle together, cooking the last of their whale meat, unaware that it's turned rank. The next morning, the consequences are stark. Both Lilburn, the steward, and young Tom Law are struck down with illness. Four men stay behind, clinging to the hope of nursing the ailing steward and the frail Anglo-Indian boy back to health. Lilburn slowly regains some strength, but Law's condition spirals rapidly. The boy lies barely conscious, his small body curled in the sand. Lilburn, desperate, pleads with the others to wait just one more day. They know it's futile, but they cannot deny his request. When the first sliver of dawn breaches the horizon, it illuminates not a new beginning, but an end. Young Tom lies as he was, curled against the cold earth, but the warmth of life has utterly departed him. His stillness is a profound silence, a void where hope once flickered. Hines, when he finds him, feels a grief so sharp it carves a hollow in his chest. Later, the words he sets to paper are not just an account, but a lament, a haunting echo of what was lost. Quote, "Alas, sweet youth, too early launched by misfortune on the tempestuous sea of life, is at last obliged to yield to the impetuous waves." Each word paints a vivid picture of the boy's struggle, a desperate cry against the indifferent cruelty of their world. For Henry Lilburn, Tom's death isn't merely a blow, it shatters him to his core. Every weary step, every gnawing hunger and pain, every desperate search for sustenance in the unforgiving wilderness, it had all been for Tom. The boy had been his anchor, his compass in the vast, swirling chaos of their flight. With Tom's last breath, that purpose, that burning reason to cling to life, is extinguished, leaving an emptiness so profound that it threatens to consume him. He, the steward who had vowed to protect this fragile life, is now adrift, engulfed by a despair so absolute it crushes the very will to survive. The following day, his body, already ravaged by the relentless siege of hunger and thirst, finally succumbs. He stumbles, a ghost of his former self, onto the shifting dunes and collapses. The relentless wind, a constant, indifferent observer, whips around him, but he never stirs again. The vast expanse of the landscape becomes his final resting place, a monument to a struggle fought and lost. That same day, another sailor, Fitzgerald, succumbs to the conditions. The following day, William Fruhl reaches his limit. The remaining men, promising to find water and return, look back to see him crawling, helpless in the sand. They return the next day empty-handed, only to find Fruhl's body has been taken by scavengers. Now only 3 remain: Irishman John Hines, 29-year-old John Warmington, and young Barney Leary. Thirst drives them past desperation, forcing them to drink their own urine. When one man's supply runs dry, he borrows from another, promising repayment. As their situation worsens, their thoughts turn to the unthinkable. Warmington, convinced not everyone can survive, suggests drawing lots, a sacrifice to save the others. Hines recoils, refusing to take part in such a barbaric act. He declares that if he falls, they can do as they wish, but while he can still walk, he won't consider it. Angered by Hines's defiance, Warmington collapses. The 3 men shake hands and part ways. The afternoon sun casts a hazy glow across the desert, blurring the horizon as Hines and Leary trudge ahead. Through the shimmering heat, 3 figures appear in the distance. The 2 sailors squint. What looks like large birds in the distance slowly takes shape. 3 men. It is De Lasso, Price, and Evans, separated from the group since Lilburn and young Law fell ill. Price, ever resourceful, has discovered a freshwater spring, a vital beacon in the arid wasteland. He guides the 2 parched men towards it, their desperation replaced with a surge of renewed energy. They learn Warmington has been left behind, and without hesitation, De Lasso and Price retrace their steps to find their abandoned comrade, broken but still clinging to life. Thirst quenched, their spirits lift. The 6 men continue their journey. The sight of grassy hills on the horizon days later signals the end of their desert ordeal. Their fortunes improve further when they come across another whale carcass, a grim but welcome source of food. Nearby, a freshwater stream offers respite as they set up camp, their weary bodies finally finding a moment of peace. They have reached Cape Recife, a point of land stretching into Algoa Bay, unknowingly drawing ever closer to salvation. The morning sun rises slowly above the horizon as Hines and Evans return to the whale carcass, their grim task a contrast to the hopeful mission of Price and De Lasso as they venture inland in search of berries. As Price carefully moves through the undergrowth, his keen eyes scan the ground for edible berries. Suddenly, a flash of light pierces through the dappled shade. He freezes, his breath catching in his throat. His heart pounds in his chest as he strains his eyes to focus on the source of the reflection. Through the thick leaves, 2 figures begin to take shape. Fellow castaways, he thinks at first, but as they emerge from the trees, the glint of sunlight on metal confirms it. Guns slung over their shoulders. Not his shipmates, not the Xhosa. Ignoring the ache in his scurvy-ridden legs, Price sprints forward, his voice raw as he alerts De Lasso. The Italian hears the desperate urgency and races to his side. They stumble to a halt before the 2 mounted men, chests heaving. De Lasso, speaking in broken Portuguese, quickly learns that they are farmhands from a nearby Dutch settlement, searching for stray cattle. They rush to the beach to call the others. The farmhands, on finding the 4 remaining castaways, recoil at the sight of them greedily devouring putrid whale flesh, then offer words that bring tears to their eyes. Comfort and sustenance awaits them at the nearby homestead of Mynheer Christian Ferreira. They are saved. It is difficult to comprehend the emotions that must have overwhelmed these survivors in this moment of deliverance. After the trials they had experienced, the shipwreck, the icy nights sleeping on the sand, the interminable thirst and hunger, the cold treatment from the locals, the hopelessness of watching their friends fall behind one by one, and the duty of burying them in the sand. All they knew was despair. This feeling must have felt as foreign as the land they had traversed. After months of hardship, despair, and loss, salvation had arrived, as unexpected and as welcome as a sunrise after the darkest night. Guided by the farmhands, they stumbled towards the farmhouse, their bodies weak but their spirits soaring. Mynheer Ferreira, taking pity on their emaciated forms, provides them with fresh milk, bread, and the promise of a feast. A convoy is arranged to take them to Cape Town. While devouring their food, Hines turns to Ferreira and inquires about the date. It is November the 29th, the Dutch farmer responds. 118 days have passed since their ship was torn apart. 6 men, their bodies ravaged by a 600-kilometer trek through unimaginable hardship, have finally reached safety. After months of relentless struggle, hope has grown into the bright dawn of salvation. Their long nightmare, at last, is over. After 118 grueling days, 6 men stumbled out of the desolate landscape. Their journey, a brutal testament to the will to survive. But what of the others, those left behind on the treacherous coast or lost to the vast wilderness? Join us next week for our final episode of the season as we discover if any more endured. And we reflect on the story, its impact, and the lessons we can take from it. If you would like to get in touch or support the show, please take a look at our website linked in the show notes. Thanks again to Lambazi Lodge and Active Escapes for their continued support this season. If you are enjoying the series, please take a moment to share and rate the show. Your support significantly boosts our visibility. The diverse and enchanting stories of Africa hold immense power, acting as vital threads in the tapestry of continental understanding and unity. By unpacking these tales, we gain profound insights into the shared human experiences and unique identities, ultimately contributing to a more cohesive and unified Africa.